So I'd now like to introduce our last speaker, who's Professor Jan Vesper, who's a neurosurgeon from Dusseldorf. And Jan's going to be talking about a rather different sort of advanced therapy. He's been working in this area for many years and led the EHDN surgical task force to try and address these issues.
Thank you, Anne, for this nice introduction, and thank you for inviting me to present finally the preliminary results of our trial. We just finished it last year, in the end of last year, for globus pallidus deep brain stimulation for chorea dominant Huntington's disease. So these are my disclosures. As you can see, predominantly medical device companies, but also gene therapy company. We started thinking about deep brain stimulation long ago, together with the Nektar. We thought about that this might be a good idea to treat chorea-dominant Huntington patients symptomatically compared to the quite successful treatments in dystonia and also in Parkinson's disease. That goes back till 2010. We started first with a pilot trial, in one-center pilot trial, to find out whether people with a significant movement disorder, predominantly movement disorder, cognitively stable, can improve from deep brain stimulation. And that was actually the case, that we had a tremendous improvement in those patients regarding the UHDRS, also the chorea subscore, and that was also true for the Burkitt-Fallen-Marston disease rating scale. There were two outliers here. These were, at this time, juvenile Huntington patients with a Westphal variant with predominantly bradykinesia. They did not improve from GPI or GPE stimulation. And that was actually the idea, to find out whether GPE or GPI is a better target, basing on the rat experience from Yazin Temel and his group and other groups. So the GPE is quite hyperactive in Huntington compared to Parkinson, and this led us thinking about that GPE might be a good idea as well. Regarding the results, so we were able to show that it is neither the GPE, not the GPI, but the hotspot of stimulation was quite the zoner in between. That was the point where we had the best stereotactic target, and where the patient were stimulated right at the end of this trial. So by knowing this, we started to apply in parallel for a larger trial, for a multi-center trial, which should last 48 months, and with a study treatment per patient of 6 months, and primary endpoint after 3 months. We included a couple of centers in Europe, in Germany, Switzerland, France, also in UK, but this was then, since we applied for the German Research Council, refused because UK at this time no longer belonged to Europe, and then one center in Austria. When we started with the study, we wanted to randomize 50 subjects and 80 to be screened. That was our estimation, and this was actually the flow chart we thought about to recruit those patients, to find out who's have fulfilled the exclusion criteria, and after inclusion, patients should underwent DBS surgery with the main target in the zoner in between GPE and GPI. That's why we call it a GP stimulation. After 1 week, randomization should take place, one group in the off phase, one group blinded in the on group, and after 3 months, unblinding, end of primary endpoint, and then an open phase with best contact simulation in the on group and secondary endpoint after 6 months. So the primary endpoint I described already. We focused on the total motor score in the UHDRS, and during the best medical treatment in on stimulation compared to the baseline. On secondary endpoints, we had included a couple of motor scores. As I said, the Chorea subscore and bradykinesia, Burkitt-Van-Masten score, of course, and also the Q motor battery of Ralph Ryman. Then cognition, and that was already mentioned before from Ginny, when she showed us what should be included in an ideal randomized controlled trial. And so as you can see here, we fulfilled these expectations together with a strobe test, verbal fluency, Matis dementia, the HAT score for psychiatry, and also for the quality of life. So in terms of inclusion criteria, we realized that many people cannot fulfill the requirements of the Matis dementia score to reach the goal of 120, and then we decided to go for more than 80% of the items testable independently from their motor impairment. And if you do this, then we were able to recruit comparable groups of patients. Also the career should be significantly, should be a median stage of Huntington with at least 10 points. The exclusion criteria, as I said, were a juvenile Huntington variants with predominant bradykinesia, postural instability score, which is important since we know from deep brain stimulation in Parkinson that this, specifically GPE stimulation as the external part of the pallidum can cause significantly postural instability during stimulation. Severe comorbidity, acute psychosis, of course, and then there's a grading, what you might not be aware of it, that is a cortical atrophy grade 3. What does it mean? That is because the German authorities required us or pushed us to provide them a cortical grading where we cannot operate on anymore, and they were not happy with, yeah, that's a surgical decision, whether he can find a trajectory or not, so they did not accept it. And what we did is finally we introduced and published a scoring system for cortical atrophy in Huntington, and with 3 grades, and they were absolutely happy with this. That actually means 100% the same, what I said, whether we can find a trajectory or not. If we cannot find it, it's a grade 3, and if there's no significant atrophy or a mild atrophy, as you can see here, so that is still accepted. And then we could continue with the study. Power calculation was quite difficult since there were no comparable studies in the past which could give us an idea how many patients we should include. There were just patient collection and single patient case reports for DBS and Huntington, and therefore we estimated it compared to what we know from dystonia conservatively, and finally received 44 patients which should be implanted with DBS for an available final analysis. And this is where we started. After reaching a funding of the German Research Council from the EHDN, we were supported for the monitoring, and significant support came from the CHDI for our non-German centers. What we did is we implanted 2 leads. We usually use in a routine for deep brain stimulation. There's nothing different. A lead with a larger space in between, for which we usually use for GPI or also for the VIM in the thalamus, and with extension and non-rechargeable battery. With image fusion, that is how it looks like in our planning software. That's what we usually do. So what are the results? First of all, the consort diagram from February. We included into the study 56 patients, of whom we had not randomized 8 for different reasons. 2 of them died before randomization, not because of surgery, but for other reasons. And 2 didn't match the inclusion criteria finally. And there were 3 more people for other reasons who were not allocated for the evaluation. Finally, we randomized 48 patients, which are 4 more than we really needed. And we had 2 groups in the off phase, 25, and in the on group, 23. In between, we started a futility analysis in Q4 2018 on the main study endpoint, and sent the data to the Data Safety Monitoring Board, who confirmed that we can continue. And now the descriptive statistics from the baseline. What you can see, that was an ideal distribution in both groups. They were absolutely similar, which means that our randomization tool was quite working well, and so there are no difference in both groups. They're 100% the same, so that we are able to believe that everything what comes out now is really true. So that is the primary endpoint after 12 weeks, as I promised, the total UHDRS motor score, and we go through this chart. It's a little bit difficult, provided from our statistician. So we can here have the baseline with 54 in the off state, and total UHDRS in off state after 3 months is all the same. However, in the on stage is 56, which is actually the same, and after 3 months in the on stage is also 53. So finally, there's no difference again, whether in the off score compared to baseline, but also not on, meaning on stimulation and on medication. If we have a look at the patient themselves, so you can easily see that the distribution of improvements and worsening is random among those 2 groups. There are patients who improved very well in the on stage, dramatically improvement, but this was also true for the off state without stimulation. So have a look at the secondary outcome criteria, UHDRS subscore, and in Korea we find a similar result, similar distribution in both groups, and significant improvement in the subscore in the on group, but also in the off group. So whether you do a stimulation or not, so that is in the end in those groups that was similar. Since some patients worsened, so there were no difference at all in the total, in the mean values. This was also true for the depression. We had a slight improvement in the on, but a dramatic and almost significant improvement in the off stage. And that was also true for the quality of life. That was actually the same, whether it was at the baseline or after 3 months in both groups, patients were affected. So what I did is in 2017, when we had the International Neuromodulation Society meeting in Edinburgh, I had the opportunity to meet John K. Rowling, as you can see, and I asked her where we can find the Philosopher's Stone for Huntington disease, TBS. So, and to disappoint you all, that is a fairy tale, just a fairy tale. There's nothing behind. So, in conclusion, we we went through our preliminary data. What we did is we were running the first prospective multicenter double-blinded controlled randomized controlled trial in DBS for Huntington's disease. We have very balanced data for baseline, no selection bias. There were no significant differences among the group regarding primary endpoint. What might be the potential explanation for those differences in outcome or for no difference in outcome? First of all, potential microlesion effect, since we had improvements in both groups. However, the improvement was not significant among those two groups. However, it might be that we had a prolonged microlesion effect, which is unusual. Usually it disappears after 4 weeks. It might be a bias of the blinded investigators who were involved in the study, and since anyway they were blinded, they were not completely out of bias and wanted to help as much as they can. We will find out whether this is true by evaluating the video rating. This was just finished a week ago. That was amazing work of Mrs. Rates and Alfonso Fasano from Lozano did over the last month, and 6 months final data are still missing. The surgical technique was very variable, since there were just friends and buddies of myself, so that I could control what they did. I was surprised how difficult and how different it is to introduce a common surgical technique among different centers. And so we are still waiting for the final Q-motor data, which might be an objective tool to prove it or not prove it. So far, as today, deep brain stimulation in Huntington is not superior to any conservative treatment, medical treatment, meaning there's no way that we should support deep brain stimulation for Huntington in any way, not in any countries. There are some countries where it is pushed forward, and this should be avoided. And some patients obviously may benefit. There's almost no severe adverse events, and we do not harm the patient, but in the end there are no predictors for a positive outcome, and even in an ideal world we were not able to change the natural course of this devastating disease. Finally, we are indebted to the participating patients and their families, and obviously this is not a one-man show. This is a very good collaboration result from the societies, EHD and CHDI, also from our Center of Clinical Studies in Düsseldorf and Marburg, and the team also in this, of the steering committee of the Data Safety Monitoring Board, and finally the video rater, and last but not least also the referring centers from in Germany, from Dienstlaken, Carsten Saff from Bochum, Elsbetta Mühlbeck from Taufkirchen, from Ulm, and obviously also from Münster. And so by saying this, I thank you for your attention, and may I, all of them who are interested in neuromodulation, invite you to Hamburg to September 23, when we are running the European chapter meeting for the INS. Thank you.